Eli Manning was an average to slightly above average regular season quarterback, but when the playoffs rolled around, he seemingly turned into Michael Jordan. He lives in infamy for two of the most memorable Super Bowl runs in modern history. But with a career record of 118 and 118, how do we explain the two-sided career of Eli Manning? His career arc is unique. An average quarterback for the most part, yet two-time champion with some of the most iconic plays in the game. He was never the best quarterback in the league during his career. He never won an MVP, never an All-Pro, and he made it to the Pro Bowl only 4 times in his 16-year career. He was prone to turning the ball over and wasn't the most accurate at times. The only noteworthy passing category he led in at any point in his career was interceptions, 3 times. His career passer rating of 84.1 ranks just 60th all time. But in the Super Bowl, his passer rating averaged 96.2, and he was pretty good at times. He amassed 4,933 passing yards and 29 touchdowns in 2011, but he was definitely inconsistent. With 2 Super Bowl MVPs, it got me thinking, is playoff Eli a real thing? Well, kind of. Shout out to Nate Silver from 538 for this data. He shows how Eli Manning is the most clutch quarterback. Without getting too technical, because I'm not that smart, ELO ratings are a way to rank teams or players based on their performance against others. If you beat someone good, your rating goes up more than if you beat somebody bad, or not as good. If you lose to a better player, your score doesn't drop as much as losing to a weaker player. So the ELO system can be applied to NFL teams and players, adjusting their ratings after each game based on who they played and how well they did. Because the Giants were often underdogs, they had a projected record of 4-7, but they actually went 8-3, now 8-4. But this data was collected in 2015. But as you can see in this list, aside from Joe Montana, there's not really any good quarterbacks in the top 5. Brady ranks 43rd, despite a postseason record of 18-8. The Patriots were favored in most games, so it hurt his ranking. But the issue with that is, the Patriots, and other teams with great quarterbacks, are favored because of the quarterback. Okay, so Nate to the rescue again. To determine how important each quarterback is, he compared their playoff results with what an average quarterback might have done in their place. To do this, he used adjusted net yards per attempt, which looks at passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, and sacks. That's then converted into points and used to see how much the team's chance of winning changed with the replacement quarterback. So it basically shows how much each star quarterback actually helped their team. And you can see in this list, it's a bit more realistic. But guess what? Manning is still at the top. Okay, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying Eli is the most clutch quarterback ever simply because of one data point. It's only one way to analyze it, right? But what's clear is that there's 2 sides to Eli. And when talking about these 2 sides, the most important to his legacy is that he defeated one of the greatest dynasties at its peak, twice. And Manning is a bit of a stoic. He maintained the same routine, same calm attitude, same expression. As teammate Michael Strahan said, he's a consistent man. And he was perfect for the Giants. New York, the epicenter of media, is notoriously ruthless, but he was unfazed by the ups and downs. He remained level-headed and was not outspoken, and pretty much free from controversy his whole career. Because of that stoicism, he was able to remain laser-focused. But for many, the playoffs can be intimidating, because there's far more pressure than any regular season game. So while many players maybe play a step below their regular season level, Eli isn't impacted. Albeit he can be inconsistent, but the pressure doesn't seem to get to him. But the 2 Super Bowl runs were where Eli really got his reputation. The best 4 games of his career were the biggest 4 he played. 2 NFC Championship games that went to overtime against the Packers and the 49ers, and 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots. He's one of only 13 quarterbacks to win 2 Super Bowls and one of just 6 to win 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So let's see. His Super Bowl runs did coincide with great defensive performances. In 2007, they held opponents to 14 points, 17 points, and then 20 points. But the Super Bowl was where the defense truly shined. They sacked Brady 5 times. He had been sacked an average of 1.3 times a game that season. The 2007 Patriots averaged 37 points a game. The 2011 Patriots averaged 32 points a game. And they were held to 14 and 17 points respectively by the Giants, which is a massive defensive feat. But Eli's role can't be overlooked either. In the 2 Super Bowls, he completed 66.2% of his passes, amassed 551 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He had a 99.1 passer rating in the playoff games prior to Super Bowl 42 and a 103.1 rating in the playoffs leading up to Super Bowl 46. In 2011, they were a 10-6 wildcard team that bested the Bucks, the number 1 seed Cowboys, and the number 2 seed Packers in icy Lambeau. Not only did he lead an unprecedented run, but also historic plays on a game-winning drive in each Super Bowl. In 2007, it was the helmet catch. In 2011, it was a sideline throw to Manningham, which was a thing of beauty. There was also some luck, but that's kind of inevitable. The throw to David Tyree is iconic, but there's definitely some luck. And so was the play before, where Eli threw the ball right to Patriots cornerback Asante Samuel, who dropped it, otherwise it would have ended the game. There was some luck in the 2011 run too, but when the team needed him, Manning was there, and that pass to Manningham was just perfect. Despite being pretty unathletic, Eli was tough. Case in point, he is third all-time for consecutive starts for a quarterback at 210. Because of his longevity, it gave him time to ascend the leaderboards. He is 7th all-time in passing yards, passing touchdowns, and completions. However, to the point of being average, his yards per pass attempt sits at 87th all-time, and touchdowns per throw is 71st. But to the point of his toughness, let's take a look at his flu game. In 2011, in the championship game against the 49ers, Eli was getting pummeled. The O-line just couldn't keep Patrick Willis and the rest of the defense away. Eli hadn't practiced much leading up to that game and was vomiting throughout the week due to the flu. He apparently lost up to 10 pounds. Flu and a leaky O-line, you say? That's okay, it's playoff Eli. He kept the same stoic face, didn't say anything, and took the Giants to a 2017 overtime win, despite being sacked 6 times. Games like this immortalize Eli. It also makes him a serious enigma, because that's not the Eli you would always get. He could get red hot or equally ice cold. Ultimately, Eli was an inconsistent quarterback. He had moments in the regular season and playoffs, but it was not a regular occurrence throughout his 16 years. When you look at his playoff history, the Super Bowl runs start to look more like anomalies. Take his career regular season stats versus playoffs. 59.7% completion percentage, 7.1 yards per attempt, and 83.7 passer rating. Postseason, 60.5 completion percentage, 6.9 yards per attempt, 87.4 passer rating. Outside of 07 and 11, he went 0-4 with a passer rating of 61.8, combining for a 54.2% completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. His 8-4 playoff record is impressive, but the offense only averaged 19.3 points per game during the playoffs, and they only made the playoffs 6 times in his 16 seasons. I'm not just saying forget his good games, that doesn't make sense, but there is clearly an inconsistency, and a career that, on the whole, is average to slightly above average, and I think his 118 to 118 record encapsulates that pretty well. Given Eli was around average, he was not good enough to elevate bad teams or coaching, and that would explain the lack of success out of the Super Bowl runs, because it was not all on him. The Giants were pretty bad at times, and Eli wasn't good enough to keep them competitive. You can see in this graphic from 538 again, Eli's extreme swings between playoff winning runs and losses, the second biggest differential for quarterbacks with at least 2 rings. That being said, when it was most important, he was a clutch son of a gun.